This is an F major 7 first inversion drop-2 chord. On the 4 top strings of the guitar. But what does that mean? Drop-2 is a way of organizing chord forms. A particular method of inverting chords, in this case, 7th chords. These major 7th chords form a symmetrical pattern. There are 4 drop-2 7th chord voicings in all: a root voicing, first inversion, second inversion, and third inversion forms. Here are the fingerings for all of them. Like many patterns on the guitar fretboard, the symmetry is twofold. Here we'll go from the F major 7, the 4 chord in the key of C, to the C major 7, the tonic chord. Notice how the symmetry is inverted. The first inversion was at the center before. Now it's moved to the edges. Also, the root form and the second inversion have switched sides, and the third inversion, which was at the edges, is now central. Now we'll go from major 7ths to minor 7ths. Again, the first inversion is placed at the center to reveal the overall symmetry of the voicings. Let's go from A minor to E minor. And once again, the symmetry is twofold. Now the third inversion moves to the center as the first inversion moves out to the sides. And back to A minor 7th. And here are the minor 7th fingerings. We've gone from major 7th to minor 7th drop-2 forms, but there are 2 more types of diatonic 7th chords to consider. Let's look at the dominant 7th and the minor 7 flat 5 chord and see what happens to the symmetry then. The 4 dominant 7th chords don't appear to have a symmetrical pattern on the fretboard. But symmetry is found in the relationship between the dominant 7th and the half-diminished chord. And the fingerings. We've looked at 4 different types of chords: major 7th, minor 7th, dominant 7th, and minor 7 flat 5, also known as half diminished. 16 different chord shapes in all, each with a unique character. To really understand the structure and function of all these chords, it helps to understand their architecture and how that architecture comes into being. This video began with an F major 7th first inversion drop-2 voicing. F major 7th happens to fit nicely into the spaces of the staff. F, A, C, E. We'll take the F, the root, and move it to the top. This is our first inversion. Now we take the first inversion's low note and move it to the top. This is our second inversion. We take the low note of the second inversion and move it to the top. This is our third inversion. This set of basic chord voicings is raw material for the drop-2. The drop-2 approach is a bit different from conventional inversions. Chord degrees are numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, highest to lowest. The second note down in all 4 voicings is moved to the bottom. We dropped the 2. Notice now how the designation of each chord has changed. What was the root voicing has become the second inversion. What was the first inversion has become the third inversion. The second inversion is now the root voice, and the third inversion is now the first inversion. So let's unshuffle these. Now the drop-2 voicings are organized root voicing, first inversion, second inversion, and third inversion from left to right. 4 F major 7th chords, each with a different low note, and each with a unique interval structure. And as convoluted as this process may seem, these chord forms still express diatonic symmetry on the fretboard. While we've been using F major 7th as an example, we're going to be more concerned with the interval relationships of the chord degrees than we are with specific note names. Looking at each chord form from its low note going up, notice how the root voicing and the first inversion both begin with a perfect fifth, while the second inversion and the third inversion both begin with a perfect fourth. The first and second inversions are both topped by a perfect fifth, with a perfect fourth on the top of the root voice and the third inversion. The middle interval in these voicings consists of 2 major thirds, a minor third, and inside the first inversion, a half step. The 4 minor 7 drop-2 forms have the same upper and lower interval structure as the major 7ths. Perfect fifths at the bottom of the root voice and first inversion, perfect fourths at the bottom of the second and third inversions, perfect fifths atop the first and second inversions, perfect fourths atop the root voice and third inversion. 2 minor thirds in the middle, 1 major third, and a whole step on the first inversion. The interval structure of the dominant sevenths differs only slightly from the major and minor. The root voice begins with a perfect fifth, but the first inversion begins with a diminished fifth. The second inversion begins with a perfect fourth, but the third inversion begins with an augmented fourth, or tritone. A perfect fifth and diminished fifth atop the first and second inversions, and a perfect fourth and augmented fourth atop the third inversion and root voice, respectively. In the middle, 2 minor thirds, 1 major third, and again we find a whole step in the middle of the first inversion. Finally, the half-diminished chords begin with a diminished fifth on the root voicing, a perfect fifth on the first inversion, an augmented fourth on the second inversion, and a perfect fourth on the third. At the top of these chords, the root voice has a perfect fourth, while the third inversion has an augmented fourth, a perfect fifth on the second inversion, and a diminished fifth on the first. 2 minor thirds in the middle, along with 1 major third, and a whole step in the middle of the first inversion. Now let's have a look at all the voicings together. Throughout this video, the chord forms have been represented in a graphic style intended to emphasize their geometric symmetry. This symmetry is not just aesthetic, but also structural. There's an interval symmetry within a diatonic key. That symmetry is expressed in many ways. Within the major and minor 7th groups, the root voicing and second inversion drop-2 chords are connected through rotational symmetry. That same pair of voicings are not connected within the dominant or within the half-diminished groups, but between them. So the dominant 7th root voicing is paired with the second inversion half-diminished, and the root voice half-diminished chord is paired with the second inversion dominant. The first and third inversions of each stand alone in the major and minor seventh groups, but these two shapes pair up with their counterparts between the dominant and half-diminished forms. Get to know these chord forms by means of their interval structure and their geometry.